Hello and welcome to webinar number 2. I'm super excited about this one because as I was just preparing for today's webinar, I was reminded about how much I love and great memories of my students and how much they loved, and got so focused on movie talk, which can also be called clip chat. So I'll explain that as we go. But a great topic to revisit if you've been doing some movie talk, or if this is new to you. I'm hoping that the demo that we go through together will help give you a bit of an idea of how it can be really easily implemented into your class. And that is, even if you're structured around a textbook, movie talk is something that can easily be adapted and as an add-on to your program. And because of the high level engagement, I really encourage you to have a go if you haven't. So let's talk about movie talk or clip chat. So movie talk was originally developed by Dr. Ashley Hastings, and it has sort of morphed and changed a little bit. So for the shorter movie talks, that you'll notice that they can also be called clip chat. So I'm just used to movie talk, so I'll probably just use movie talk. So it's an activity for an acquisition-driven language classroom. And what happens is the teacher plays a short video clip with no audio and explains it using comprehensible language. It's made comprehensible by restricting the language to high-frequency words, so not explaining everything in the movie, but picking out parts of the movie that language that you'd like your students to help them to acquire by giving them that rich input. So it's highly engaging, and if you choose the right movie talk. Having said that, I don't think that I've ever used a movie talk in my class that hasn't inspired and some sort of emotional response from the students. Okay, so why are they so good? I've already touched on that, but it gives you a chance to provide heaps of comprehensible input. You can reuse and recycle the language that you've targeted, and it's kept really fresh and interesting because of the high visual support. It provides amazing student engagement. It is super fun. You can really engage with your students on a really fun and personal level as you share the emotions of what you're seeing in the movie. It can be modified to use any structure. So really, that's another reason why it's so good. You can limit it to a very simple movie talk and a simple explanation of the movie talk plot, or you can, depending on your students, you can really branch out and use higher level structures. And all of that, once again, helps to lower the affective filter, which I've mentioned before. I will probably mention again because it is, I believe, one of the big takeaways that I have taken from Dr. Stephen Krashen and his research. If we can lower the affective filter, that means keeping our students really feeling like that they're not lost, that they are being swept away by a story or some characters. They're not focusing consciously on the language. That's when language acquisition really can flourish. So, how to prepare? First step, you choose a movie clip, and in the in JapanEasyReads community, I have put an amazing resource that's not mine, but it is one that is shared amongst CI teachers, and that is a movie clip database. So it's got an absolute bundle of movies with their links, if they're still live, the structures, the sample structures, although, you know, each teacher can modify those to what your class needs, and a brief synopsis of what's happens in the movie, whether it's got audio or not. Some of them are in French, but it wouldn't matter, or Spanish, because you're providing the narrative. So the student's first exposure to it is just to observe it visually, with you explaining it in comprehensible Japanese. So step 2, obviously watch it and pick out the main plot points and summarize in the target language. So what an overview of what are the core language that you'd like to really target. So if it's Gaski desu, you'll choose a movie talk that is going to lean itself towards that language use. And I say summarizing because it's not word for word what is happening in the story, in the movie. That's something that I learnt when I was trying to provide all of this language and explain it all in lots of unnecessary language. Really boil it down to, especially with beginners, limiting the language, but go really deep with the language. So you're, again, if you're using the word shimasu, so not bothering to, you're not worrying about the conjugations. They will go with the flow in the context of watching the movie, but limiting and that's why cognates are really, really important. If you can use those katakana words as much as you can, that will help ease the cognitive load for your students. But yeah, summarizing, and a good tip, I think, is to try and summarize them using the Super 7. So that's your starting point, because that is the highest frequency language. And then additional ones can be added and given support either by a gesture or by simply writing it up on the board. But the high frequency targeted grammar, structures that you want your students to acquire, that's your focus. So once you've got the plot, you'll do screenshots. It doesn't have to be a lot, but if you're new at movie talk, this is one way that's going to help support you as a teacher and give you just a little bit of scaffolding and structure to this. Once you've done it a few times, it does become easier, but it is a bit of a skill to know what type of language and how to recycle the same language in interesting ways. So I would suggest, if you're new to this, please do screenshots of the images from the video that match the plot points. So importantly, we don't give away the ending. So just some, maybe half a dozen screenshots, and then think about the vocab and the language and scaffold that as needed. As I said, less is more. Number 5, create any pre or post activities that you like. They could be personal questions and answers, so you can engage with the students about the topic in the movie talk, or it could be a true and false listening quiz at the end. It could be nothing at all, and I have certainly done that as used as an activity, which we'll go into a little bit later, the different ways you can use a movie talk. At the end, embed the video to watch at the end of the discussion with your students. So they will see it in its entirety at the end. So step 1 is to explain the process. So this is really important, especially if this is a new activity for your class. It can help to avoid the frustration or confusion when you're starting and stopping. So I have found giving that clear explanation of the process up front only needs to be done once. Once the students know the process of the movie talk, they understand what's expected and what they need to do and what will happen at the end, which is that they will see it in its entirety. So you might say something like, we're going to watch a movie clip. It's a fun one. I really like this one. It's got a good plot or what have you. I will explain things as we watch them. And I'll do this in Japanese. The reason I'm doing it in Japanese is because my job is to give you lots and lots of input. So your job is to follow along so you can get the input and answer the questions when I ask them by either gesturing or giving one word or one sentence responses. At the end, we will watch the whole clip, no stops, and you will get to see the ending. So generally, I found that that is a way to placate the students and just to keep them focused on listening, which is the main goal here. The learning intentions may be, I can listen to and understand the plot story of the movie talk, and I can listen to, follow, and join in the discussion using Japanese that I know. To do that, to be successful, I'll be listening with the intent to follow the discussion, to understand what the gist is. I don't need to know every single word, but I'm listening to get an idea of the overall plot story. For success, I'm going to be showing my emotional response, whether it's verbal or non-verbal. So smiling, gesturing, laughing, or giving some sort of expression that shows that you're showing your comprehension that way. To be successful, we'll be maintaining the Japanese flow. So that means no English while Sensei is speaking and talking about the movie talk. And as always, if you're not clear, let me know. So a timeout or a repeat just helps from the student, just helps to let me know if I'm being comprehensible enough. Maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I need to point and pause on the pictures. Maybe I need to write up a tricky word that I'm using that I didn't think that I would need, and I put that up there. That's what that means. We can keep going on. So keeping in the flow as much as possible. Step 2, choose your clip. So when you're thinking about what clip you'd like to use, you might like to focus on a unit or a topic that you are doing. So it could be at the beginning of the year when you're building community in your class. It might be something about being a good friend, or it could be setting the scene up for school. So using a school-related one where particularly if you need to cover that in your curriculum, there are lots of fantastic school related movie talks. Or it could be about family. So you're picking one and thinking about the structures that you'd need for that. And one of the things that I needed to flip my thinking around was rather than needing to cover all the family words, for example, the family vocab, I was thinking about okay, how can I use the Super 7, the high frequency word chunks, language chunks, as the base, and then drip feed the relevant vocab that's required within that. So that was a real game changer for me when I started thinking about how to make my Japanese classes more comprehensible. So by doing that, you are constantly for the whole year recycling all of those Super 7, and over the course of the year or 2 years, it's amazing what language vocab is covered as you go, rather than in one hit. If it's taught in one hit, typically happens is your good kids, the ones with those great recall skills, will blitz the test. They will remember that, they'll get an A+, but then they will forget it because it's been learnt, not acquired. So always thinking about how we can make the language experience be one that allows for acquisition, not language learning. Other ways that you can use Movie Talk, it could be Movie Talk Mondays or Friday film days, and used as a bit of a routine in if you're teaching in multiple lessons across the week. You could use a short one, and I certainly have, as a brain break. So just a very short clip, and there's plenty of those out there. Or it could be for a bailout, and I've certainly used this as well, when the things that you've planned for whatever reason don't go to plan, and you need something that is sure to get everybody on board, and when everybody needs a little bit of chill time. So it's really multi-purpose. Okay, so here's a demo of a movie talk that I did. It was one of my first ones that I prepared, and certainly the more that I've done it, the more I've tweaked and tweaked and tweaked. And even when I was preparing this, I thought, oh, I could do that a little bit differently. So it's always a bit of a work in progress, because it depends on the structures you're using, the students that you have, and one clip can target a whole range of different language chunks. So the ones that I'm going to focus on from the Super 7 is des, ski des, arimasu, shimasu, and tabe, tai des. Tai is want to, is also a Super 7. So here we go. So again, I've gone through and I've screenshot some of these. And so I've just got this here so you can see as we go. You don't necessarily need any writing on this, although you can if you'd like. But I would typically just have the picture, and I might say, oh, nan desu ka? Neko desu ka? And then we're interacting. Hai, so desu ne. Inu desu. Neko janai desu. Namae wa nan desu ka? Namae wa iie. Betty janai desu. Boris janai desu. Benji janai desu. Namae wa Fritz desu. Okay, so you can also extend that by giving some personal questions and answers. For example, is it your pet? Is it Scooby-Doo? Is it a Chihuahua? Is it big? So again, the stakes are not that high for the students when you structure the questions like this. Also, you can, use your gestures as well, but using some cognates or some proper nouns in there that don't overwhelm the students' cognitive space is really helpful. What we really want to do is get them really comfortable using the Super 7 in lots and lots of different ways. And so, you know, using Chihuahua, I'm not going to be worried about whether there's a Japanese word for Chihuahua. I'm not worried about them acquiring Chihuahua, but I do want them to know, is it, isn't it, what is it, those structures. Okay, so again, when the student's sort of interest has waned, you move on. And, oh, 犬ですか? いいえ、犬じゃないです。何ですか? ホットドッグですか? ホットドッグじゃないですね。何ですか? And so you're asking again, asking for input and engagement from the students. ステーキですね。ステーキです。フリッツはステーキが好きですか? 好きじゃないですか? Again, you can expand on the language that you use depending on your level. But I do believe that less is more, especially for beginners, because you want them to go away feeling really competent, that they understood the bulk of what you're saying. We really want 80% of the students understanding at least 80% of what we're saying. フリッツは何が好きですか? 何を食べたいですか? そうですね。ステーキを食べたいです。どうして? So again, asking some question words. The question words are also really, really important to exploit as much as we can. ステーキは美味しいです。だから、フリッツはステーキを食べたいです。So, continuing to ask questions that focus on the target structures. What does he want to eat? What does he want to catch? Is this a ball? No, it's not a ball. Fritz doesn't want to catch a ball. He doesn't want to eat a ball. He wants to eat steak. He wants to catch steak and he wants to eat it. So there's a lot of language there, a lot of information, but limited language structures. はい、フリッツはステーキをキャッチしますか? So you're getting the students to guess. キャッチしますか? キャッチしませんか? When I did do this for the very first time, it was with year 7s, and I hadn't introduced shimas, or certainly not shimasen, but with the gestures and the context of the movie talk, they pick it up absolutely no problem. So ask related questions and keep it comprehensible. So 何ですか? 食べ物ですか? ボールですか? どんな食べ物ですか? Again, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. フリッツはミートボールをキャッチしますか? どう思いますか? Get them to guess. They can vote. キャッチします、キャッチしません. And then step 3 is to read. Just checking on the time. So, as I said, these are, I'll move me out of the way. These are the Super 7. So it's limited, very, very limited. And probably if I needed to, I could cut this down even further for super beginners. There are a lot of, quite a few cognates there. And so after they've done a movie talk, again, not always, but I do like to, the more they read, the more input they get. So I would follow up with a short recap of the story. And again, for beginners that haven't got katakana yet, and even those classes that do have it, I think there is a place for sure to use romaji for proper nouns. It takes the cognitive load off the students so they can actually read for competency and enjoyment. They get success because they know what's happened in the story. This is a recap. They've experienced that. They know what Fritz wants and what he doesn't, what he can and can't do. They've guessed, they've sort of invested their emotional energies into that. So one word here that I didn't explain before was komatta koto ga arimasu. Now that's one that I've used there because with our stories, my students were quite familiar with this because there was always a problem with one of the stories. So it was an easy no-brainer to include that. Here in the brackets, I've just done this to show you another way to scaffold it further for your beginner students. So I wanted my students to recognize inu, and so I've used inu there. However, for extra scaffolding, you could take out inu and you could use Fritz in romaji, and that would just provide a little bit extra support. So that's movie/clip talk. I really encourage you to have a go because it is such a lot of fun. It really is. And a really easy way for your students to feel success because they are following on with the story. It's fun. They don't actually know that they're working. My students thought that this was like, you know, a bit of a treat to do movie talk. And I just thought this is perfect, that they don't know that they're working, and we're all having fun together. So please give it a go and let me know how it goes. And I will see you next week for webinar 3. All right, take care.